Dallas Cowboys at the Buffalo Bills, one of the games of the week. Again, Dallas, they're the team, them and the Bills, kind of in the thick of playing a ton of good teams, right? The Cowboys just played the Eagles and won. The Bills just beat the Chiefs. So now they get to play each other. Little rematch of some early 90s Super Bowls here, Sam. Jim Kelly, Troy Aikman. It's going to be great. But realistically, a big game here on the slate. Our friend Dan Orlovsky, who's not really our friend. We could call him our friend.
He's not a friend of the show.
He's not a friend of the show. But Dan O said Josh Allen's MVP if he wins this game. I mean, if he single-handedly wins this game by himself, I would give him MVP.
Dan O has been battling against the Shouty Show people this season. Part of me feels sorry for him, right? Because he has to go on these shows with Stephen A. and stuff every week and rail against the idiocy and try and explain that, yes, Josh Allen might have a lot of interceptions, but he also has a lot of touchdowns. And actually, most really good quarterbacks over the last few years have also had quite a lot of interceptions. And it's not just a thing in and of itself that immediately makes you a bad quarterback. And it's like, on the one hand, I feel sorry for having to argue stupidity with facts because there's no point, right? It's like that old adage, never pick a fight with an idiot because they'll drag you down to their level and they'll win with experience. So you feel bad for him. On the other hand, you go, you knew what you were signing up for. You know, you're getting paid quite a lot of money to go on the Shouty Show and be part of the Stephen A. shtick. You know, it's like, this is...
Well, I would do it.
Right. Like, this is part of
I'd play a character on TV.
Exactly. It's part of the gig. It's not real. You know what it is. Steve, you know, it's pantomime idiocy. It's not real idiocy. It might be real idiocy as well as pantomime idiocy, but, you know, that's what it is.
So it's a fascinating game because the Bills they're 7-6. Cowboys are 10-3. Cowboys are now, as we've said on the other show or earlier in the week, number 2 seed in the NFC. They're above the Philadelphia Eagles as of right now in the NFC East. It's a battle of the Cowboys, who have the number 1 point differential in the NFL. Sorry, and the Bills are 5th. So yeah, the Bills, you know, all season we've been saying they're far better than a 7-6 team. The Cowboys are sitting there at 10-3, and they hadn't beaten a good team until yesterday or last week. And a big part of the Cowboys splits, as at least one of our listeners, viewers pointed out, or someone followed us on Twitter and said the big advantage here is grass, turf first grass for Dallas. They're 0-3 on grass, which includes Arizona because they wheel the grass in.
So that's dome but grass.
Dome but grass, yes. But there's also Philadelphia and San Francisco. That's where Dallas has not only lost, but kind of got whooped. Well, got whooped twice.
Right.
On grass. This is a turf field in Buffalo, whatever it's worth.
This is just chaos. This is grass but indoors and turf but outdoors.
Correct.
It's madness. It's also the battle, like the MVP conversation, I think, is actually a real one. Okay, no, people aren't making the case for Josh Allen too much, but right now these are number 1 and number 2 in PFF grade overall. Dak Prescott is number 1, 92.1. Josh Allen is number 2, despite the interceptions, 91.0. If you look at just passing grade, the order shuffles around a little bit. But genuinely, this is an MVP statement type of game for one of these guys, you know, if they get the win and are a big part of it. And to me, the MVP race, if you like, is starting to sort of come down to Dak Prescott versus Brock Purdy, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think Allen could force his way into that. If he goes on a run to end this season, given the schedule they have, and this would be one of those games, Allen will end up with a resume that looks quite MVP worthy.
Yeah, if they go on a run, and especially because of the narrative of they fired an offensive coordinator and overcame some adversity or whatever, that will help in that.
The picks were Ken Dorsey's fault.
The actual on-field matchup, I think, is going to be a great one. I mean, Dallas, they got picked apart by Seattle just 2 weeks ago, and I want to continue to give Dan Quinn so much credit for just how he has just run the show on the defense the last 3 years. When Deron Bland was getting beat up by DK Metcalf, they switched, put Stephon Gilmore on him. They put Gilmore on A.J. Brown last week. Dan Quinn continues to adjust. What do they do in this game? Because I think if you look at Buffalo's offensive line, they've been okay this year, but they're not going to match up well against Dallas. I think the Bills are going to want to get rid of the ball quickly.
It's been a pretty good offensive line this year. They've kind of gone the other way of, remember last year they were like all of their average players were catching the bad end of variance at the same time, and their offensive line was a problem because of that. Well, generally the same personnel, there's been some changes, rookie Osiris Torrance, et cetera. Generally the same personnel is now catching the high end of variance. So it looks like a pretty good offensive line this year, even though they're not winning as many games.
Yeah, I'm not. It's either.
I agree with you though. Like they're a bad matchup against Dallas simply because Dallas has the best pass rush in the NFL.
That's what I mean.
Therefore, everybody is a bad matchup against them.
And if you watch Buffalo these last couple weeks, it's been like, all right, it's less Stephon Diggs driven the last few weeks, and it's a lot of get the ball out to their running backs and Dalton Kincaid and underneath the coverage. I wonder how much that's going to be the game plan once again, getting the backs and tight ends involved, getting the ball out of Josh Allen's hands quickly. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. I think James Cook has been fantastic. I think they schemed up some really nice plays for him against the Chiefs last week before they slowed down a little bit in the second half. So that matchup's great. And then can Buffalo do anything to stop this Dallas offense? They are absolutely cooking. You mentioned Dak. He is playing at an elite level this year, best football of his career by far. And, when you're looking at Dak, you say this is the narrative could be the script has flipped here, right? You've got Mike McCarthy, you've got the new footwork, the new West Coast offense that the Cowboys have. You have a whole new Dak this year, or, wet blanket of reason here. Is he due for some regression? Because he's never played at this level. This isn't what Dak has done previously. Is he due to regress here down the stretch and actually make the Dak narratives even worse if he, collapses here in December? I'm not saying he will. I'm just, throwing that out there as a possibility for the shouty shows.
How nice of you.
Yes.
Well, of course, Cam Newton says he's just a game manager anyway. So,
gosh, I'm not even acknowledging.
It is. Like, I think you can argue, though, that we've been arguing for years that Dak Prescott is one of the most sensitive quarterbacks in the NFL to changes in his environment. And as we've said previously, that's kind of like a three-headed thing. Supporting cast from a receiving point of view, supporting cast from a pass blocking point of view, offensive line point of view, and then supporting cast from a schematic point of view. I think you could argue this year that two of those things have gone back to levels that they were at previously. The offensive line and the receiving core is as good as it's ever been for Dallas, probably. Maybe the line's a little bit worse, but it's gotten back towards that time when they had, 3 All-Pros on the offensive line and it was the best line in the NFL. And the big difference this year is this might be the best sort of scheme he's been in so far, right? We didn't think it was going to be that way, given the narrative around Mike McCarthy, but it's difficult to argue with what they're doing right now. And it might be the most help he's been receiving from a scheme point of view in his career. So, yeah, maybe he's just overachieving and he's due to come back down to earth over the back end of the season or to the playoffs. On the other hand, like, this might be the new ceiling for where Dak Prescott can be when everything around him is good.
So again, I think Dak's playing great. If the chat's talking about turnovers, the turnovers last year were always overblown. They were overblown, and then they started to kind of become real, like for 2 weeks at the end. They were always overblown. Just like, the similarity this year is Josh Allen's turnovers, right? For last year, the shouty shows, trashing Dak for all of his turnovers. I mean, he had a dropped pass, pick 6 in overtime. And they were having like legit discourse, like, man, Dak's turnovers, man, they're starting to catch up. Dak's not taking care of the football.
And again, he's swung back all the way to the other direction, like the Bills' offensive line, right? He caught a really bad end of turnover luck, and an absurd volume of his turnover-worthy plays became turnovers. And this year, he's got both the lowest turnover-worthy play rate of his career and the lowest in the NFL. That's not where Dak Prescott typically resides.
Yeah, and Josh Allen has the 11th. We're missing one in there because we'll save for a run, but say the 14th best turnover-worthy play rate in the league this year. Nothing close to the 14 interceptions that he has that are tied for the league lead with Sam Howell. So
Dak this year is halving his career average turnover-worthy play rate. Like, he's chopped it in half.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, so Dak's playing great. I'm just saying, like, because it's not in line with the rest of his career, do we see regression, or do we just see, hey, this is what he is going forward? So I'm looking forward to see Prescott against this Bills defense that tries to prevent big plays, and the Cowboys, Dak hit 5 big time throws the other night against Philadelphia, hitting them in crunch time, hitting them over these last few weeks at an incredible rate. The stretch that Dak is on right now, I think is one of the best we've seen in the last 10 years or so. Since week 6 or whatever it is, Dak Prescott playing at an extremely high level. Bills putting the ball in Josh Allen's hands a lot more recently. So it's going to be a great matchup. Let's make some picks. Bills by 2. I've seen it at 2.5 as well here. Bills by 2. Where are you going with this one?
I feel like Dallas is getting disrespected.
Really?
Yeah. They showed last week. They're for real. They can beat good teams. And Buffalo hasn't shown they're that good a team so far this year. So I think Dallas will win.
All right. I might disrespect them then. I'll take Buffalo to cover the 2. I got Buffalo 26-23.
26-23.
26-23. That puts it at 40. Over-under's 40.5, 50.5. So I'm basically like predicting chalk. Bills by 3.
Okay.
Right at the number, as Uncle Anthony would say.